Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is Javier with The Real Javier Novoa, a channel, a platform, and a modality where we apply the principles of philosophy, spirituality, mysticism, and business to rapid lifestyle transformation. And today, ladies and gentlemen, as always, I would like to ask you, if you find value in the materials and in our videos, please take a second to hit the subscribe button below. Not only will you be joining a community of master manifestors and be able to tap into the energy of that to massively increase the effectiveness of your own strategies and your own manifestations, as has been proven by the peer-reviewed experiments of the great Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's proven that people who get together with these energies are able to be effective in a lot quicker time periods and are allowed to pack a bigger punch, so to speak, just due to the energetic unity. Of course, you need no one. You can always draw the resources that you need to you, but it helps to be involved in a community, and indeed we do have many subscribers of very great levels of energy and very advanced levels of manifesting ability. So I would invite you to join that community just to supercharge your own energy, ladies and gentlemen. Secondly, you'll be getting alerts to all of my videos. You'll be first in line for that. Every single day we release long form videos of, I believe, great value to your lives that you can take and implement immediately in your rapid lifestyle transformation, ladies and gentlemen. And also, not only that, but you'll help us get the word out. You'll help us get the algorithm in our favor so that we can reach as many people as possible with this message, because the times call for that, ladies and gentlemen. And that's precisely why I'm making this video tonight. You know, the modern world, the modern prison grid, has set society up and set the conventions up so that we never take time to pause. We're hardly ever able to just get out with nature and to meditate and to be silent. And we're hardly ever able to get off on our own and contemplate. That's why it's more important than ever to carve out times, carve out moments, even be they brief moments, to actually meditate, to contemplate, and to inspire yourselves, ladies and gentlemen. Inspiration and drawing lessons of hope and examples that will inspire you and help you go forward is the name of the game. It's going to increase your energy, and it's going to help you get there quicker. It's going to help you remain in state. And anything that you can do that will make it easier for you to remain in state, to keep your eye on the prize, so to speak, is going to be extremely valuable. And in this video, what I want to do is basically just give you some inspiration, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to be going back into the nitty-gritty of what you can do, of steps you can take, as we will eternally be doing as long as this channel and this platform is in operation. But right now, I just want to take a pause along the hiking path, so to speak. Sit down, grab a refreshment, grab some coffee, as I am wont to do when I make these videos. And I'd like this video to be sort of another go-to video when you're sort of in the state of neutral. Now, if you're very upset, or if you're in great emotional upheaval, I'd recommend that you watch the videos we made the other day that will basically help elevate you out of that. But if you're in a neutral place, I'd recommend drawing some of the inspiration that we're going to do today, because we have to remind ourselves of our principles. Marcus Aurelius knew this well, and he said in the Meditations that we have to keep our principles and our philosophy constantly before us, because what will happen if we don't is that it will be erased. I remember one Islamic scholar said that trying to learn something in a certain state, and I believe that it's a state where you're not in alpha and so you're not very receptive, is like writing on water, ladies and gentlemen. But learning something, and I'm paraphrasing here, while you're in a state of great alpha and also repeating that thing and constantly visiting those principles, eventually it's like carving into stone. And I want you to get so good at these principles that you start using them subconsciously. In martial arts, in the first lessons in karate, they will tell you to do certain movements hundreds and hundreds, if not thousands of times. And in the beginning, you will ask, what is the effectiveness of this? But when you start piecing all of the movements together, you realize that it behooved you to drive the ability to do these movements into your subconscious. I hope you understand me just a little bit. It's very important to draw inspiration. And what better fount to go to for inspiration, knowing, of course, that is all you and that no one has what you don't have because we're all one. However, this expression of you in this experience, there's no better person to go to for that inspiration than the person I believe to probably be the greatest mystic and the greatest manifestor, if not among the greatest, if not the greatest, then among the greatest, the great Neville Goddard. And here I have my well-worn copy of The Power of Imagination. The Power of Imagination, I believe, contains all of the major books of Neville Goddard, all of his major works. Of course, his speeches are even more voluminous, and you can find many of them for free on the internet. But his books are very succinct, and it's a great way that you'll be able to return to the teachings, and you'll be able to really drill them into you, even if you think you know them. This is the go-to book where you can actually chew upon them, contemplate them, and assimilate them into your being. Now, for drawing inspiration, we need, or rather, we can do no better than to turn to testimonials. And I think the best book for that, especially if you're sort of about to get down, or you're getting into the hubbub of life, is to go to what the great book by Neville Goddard, which is in the back of this, called The Law and the Promise. And The Law and the Promise is basically, in the beginning part of the book, which is about 90% of it, is a compendium of testimonials of people utilizing the principles, the same principles that Neville Goddard taught, the same principles that Abraham Hicks teaches, and the same principles that we teach in this channel, of course, to a more specialized goal of rapid lifestyle transformation, of getting yourself a homestead, of getting yourself free from a job and a boss. But we do apply these principles, and this is the font from which all of it begins. And so in the beginning, there are testimonials of applying the principles. Of course, the end of the book goes into more mystical experience of Neville Goddard himself. We can question how useful that is right now to what we're trying to do in this channel. But basically what I want to do is just basically read some of the testimonials in this great book and then sort of comment on them and show you how you can apply them to your life. And we're going to be doing a more series, by the way, more videos on Neville Goddard's books as lectures, because I believe it's the rudiment, it's the elementary principles that you need to learn in order to be a master manifestor, in order to tap into your natural power. It all starts with Neville Goddard, at least in this century. Of course, he drew from many great teachers, from many great philosophers, as you'll see here. So, the most important thing is in the introduction to the book, where Neville Goddard establishes the fact that imagination is reality. And we've gone into this in all of our videos. Ladies and gentlemen, there's no difference between what you conjure in your imagination and reality. And I challenge you, and I defy you to find me an actual empirical difference. When you dream, you think that it's real until you wake up, unless you're one of those rare lucid dreamers. When you close your eyes and imagine something and really get into the act, I just want you to imagine a rose right now. Neville Goddard told all of his students to do this. Imagine a rose. Smell the rose. I know you can do it. Now, if the rose is not real, Neville Goddard asked his students, how could it smell being in the air? Because in order to smell something, there has to be an actual chemical reaction in the brain. And in order for that to happen, there has to actually be some material acting upon those senses. As we know, truly all is one and there's no out there, as the great John Wheeler, the physicist, said. But for the purposes of the game, you have to understand that when you imagine something, it actually exists, but on another film roll. And what Neville Goddard establishes in this introduction, he says, when man solves the mystery of imagining, the mystery that imagining is it and everything indeed is imagination, he will have discovered the secret of causation. The secret of what causes everything, ladies and gentlemen. The secret of how to get anything is right here. If you know that, you don't need to listen to any other lectures. Of course, it behooves you to do so in order to practice the principles. But it's a very simple principle. He says the secret of causation is that imagining creates reality. Therefore, the man who is aware of what he is imagining knows what he is creating. So, you'll know what you're going to get by what your default imagination is, and by extension, what your feelings are, what your dominant emotions are. If you can pay attention to that, if you can actually be the observer and observe the observer, as the great spiritual teachers have taught, you will know exactly what's coming to you. And if you know it, you can avoid it, because if you know the cause, you can withdraw that cause, and then the effect must be gone. That's simply a tautology. So, the man who knows what he's imagining, knows what he's creating, realizes more and more that the drama of life is imaginal. Of course, you can intellectually know this, but to actually viscerally and actually bodily and subconsciously know this, you've got to practice it. The drama of life is not physical. All activity is at bottom imaginal. And the great Ludwig von Mises indirectly illustrated this by talking about the fact that we can deduce all of the categories of human action through logic, through logical thought, without having to observe a thing. And why is that? Because action is the offshoot of thought. There's no difference between action and thought. Ludwig von Mises, the great Austrian economist, knew this. That's why if you study economics, you'll see a lot of interrelation between economics and this science of manifestation. And it's all very mystical, and it's all at the same time very scientific. An awakened imagination works with a purpose, Neville Goddard says. It creates and conserves the desirable and transforms and destroys the undesirable. So basically, if you want to keep something going, it'll keep it going. But if you want to transform something, you can apply your imagination to that and transform it, ladies and gentlemen. So, he says, the future will not be fundamentally different from the imaginal activities of men. Therefore, the individual, this is probably the most important point here of this video. The individual who can summon at will whatever imaginal activity he pleases, and to whom the visions of his imagination, what we call in this channel focus, because what Neville means by imagination is not only images, but also sounds, words, perceptions, anything that can be grouped into what I called in the early videos of this channel context. Context is the thought stuff of your surroundings, ladies and gentlemen, and refer back to those videos for that. But anything in context, what we call in this channel context, that can be attributed to what Neville calls imagination. So don't think, as many people do, well, I'm not good at seeing images in my imagination. That doesn't matter, because you can use words, you can hear sounds, you can hear your friend congratulating you, you can smell something like the smell of money Neville Goddard talks about. Anything that you do in your focus, and that's what we do in this channel. We train you in mental focus. And to whom the visions of his imagination are as real as the forms of nature, is master of his fate. The individual, I'll repeat again, who can summon at will whatever imaginal activity he pleases, and to whom the visions of his imagination are as real as the forms of nature, is master of his fate. That's why we're trying to take down the boundary between the real and the imagined on this channel. And when you do that, you've escaped the prison grid, because you know it to be simply another figment of imagination that can be withdrawn. Again, he says, Do not bow before the dictate of facts and accept life on the basis of the world without. That's what we're teaching people to do on our channel. Not to do. Assert the supremacy of your imaginal acts over facts and put all things in subjection to them. As the Christians would say, put all things in subjection to the reign of Christ. We say, put all things in subjection to the reign and the choice of your focus. Hold fast to your ideal in your imagination. Nothing can take it from you. Nothing can take it from you. But your failure to persist in imagining the idea realized. And remember, persistence is not walking around imagining it 24/7. No. Persistence is simply observing whatever feelings come that are in contradiction to that and just letting them pass and still knowing it's abiding in that knowing without doing anything that you already have it, and simply laughing at those feelings and thoughts, watching them go by like clouds, and living in what Neville Goddard calls the Sabbath. Resting in that and simply doing whatever actions are inspired to you. That's persisting. It's very easy, ladies and gentlemen. This is very simple, and some of the stories here are going to illustrate that. Imagine only states that are of value or promise wealth. This is basically the essence of the book here. I just want to read a few stories here from the book. This is one of the most inspirational ones. It ties into exactly what we're going to be talking about in the next few videos about establishing your homestead, your house. And I will, without further ado, just jump right in. Neville Goddard says, for many years a doctor and his wife dreamed about their stately habitation, but not until they imaginatively lived in it did they manifest it. Here's their story. Some 15 years ago, Mr. M and I purchased a lot on which we built a 2-story building housing our office and living area. We left ample space on the lot for an apartment building, if and when our finances would permit. So they're already making it conditional here. That's the mistake that we make in the beginning. All those years we were busy paying off our mortgage, so at the end of that time we had no money for the additional building. We still desired it so much. It was true that we had an ample savings account, which meant security for our business, but to use any part of it for a new building would be to jeopardize that security. But you can have it all. This is what this will illustrate. But now your teaching awakened a new concept, boldly telling us we could have what we most desire through the controlled use of our imagination, and that realizing a desire was made more convincing without money. Realizing a desire was made more convincing without money. We decided to put it to a test, to forget about money. That's what you have to do. You have to, as Abraham Hicks says, you have to take money out of the equation. Then you'll very quickly get to what you want. Because as the great Peter Sage says, ladies and gentlemen, this is one you could take to the bank, by the way. No pun intended. He says you don't need money. You need a better strategy. Because money's only energy, ladies and gentlemen. And whatever you need, as Krishnamurti said, if you need the money will come. But don't make the main focus the money. So many people don't go forward with projects because they think they don't have the money and can't get financing. You can get financing, but first you have to focus on something else than what's tripping you up. He said we decided to forget about the money and concentrate our attention on the thing we desired the most in this world, the new apartment building. With this principle in mind, we mentally constructed the new building as we wanted it, drawing physical plans so we could better formulate our mental picture of the completed structure. They drew plans, ladies and gentlemen. They planned it out and mapped it out to the best of their ability and got a really good specific mental picture. We're going to be coaching you in this on how to do this more, tricks of the trade and so on and so forth. But this is the essence of what you have to do. Never forgetting to think from the end, in our case, the completed occupied building. We took many imaginative trips through our apartment house, renting the units to imaginary tenants, examining in detail every room, and enjoying the feeling of pride as friends offered congratulations on the unique planning. Now remember, at many points Neville Goddard says to get the scene down to a very succinct scene, and then keep repeating that. This is another method by which you can actually imagine different scenes and actually live out the scenes and practice the scenes. Some great teachers, such as Bashar, says you can actually physically act out a scene. So for example, if you want to be a day trader, you can actually pretend to day trade, and this is very easy now that we have simulation software. You can journal it. The point is, you can use any technique or no technique, ladies and gentlemen. You can actually just tell yourself, I have it, and use no technique. You're going to feel inspired to using a certain technique or no technique, or whatever you're inspired to do. Do what you're inspired to do, and don't get hung up on techniques. This is just showing how this technique worked for them. Another may work for you. It's what we go into in our videos. It's what we go into in our coaching calls, how to adjust a technique to cater to your specific situation, to your specific personality type, and we will be getting into that much more to give you a power punch. But just remember that. So, we brought into our imaginal scene one friend in particular. I shall call her Miss X. A lady we had not seen for some time, as she had given us up socially, believing us a bit peculiar in our new way of thinking. Which is why usually we don't recommend that you share these ways of thinking with others until you've actually manifested, because people will say or try to talk you out of it, or they will shun you and so forth. It's not necessary. You can do all of this incognito. You don't need to announce it to the world, unless you feel inspired to do so, in which case do that too. But in our imaginal scene, we took her through the building and asked her how she liked it. Hearing her voice distinctly, we had her reply, "Doctor, I think it's beautiful." So in your imaginal scenes, have people interact with you. Have them reply. Make it as real and vivid as possible, and make the people say what you want them to say, and observe that. Because you are it, and you are all them. They're all characters showing you to yourself, ladies and gentlemen. It's a very profound, spiritual, mystical concept. So, one day while talking together of our building, my wife mentioned a contractor who had constructed several apartment houses in our neighborhood. By the way, only tell your wife or your spouse about this if they're on board. If they're not on board with the philosophy, don't even let them know your desires, ladies and gentlemen, because they can talk you out of it. There are many desires that my wife doesn't even know about, and I would recommend that you don't tell anyone, even the closest of relatives, if you think they could talk you out of it, because this is yours. We knew of him, but in this case, the both of the members of this matrimony, both of the couple, so to speak, both members of this couple were on board with the philosophy, and they fully embraced it. So in that case, co-creating can be a very powerful thing. The same goes for business partners, ladies and gentlemen. You can have a great business partner, but he may think this philosophy, if you've adopted it, you've gone off the deep end. Don't tell him about that, but yet continue to collaborate in ways that both of you agree on. It's a very harmonious way to exist. We knew of him only by the name that appeared on signs adjacent to buildings under construction. But realizing that if we were living in the end, we would not be looking for a contractor, we promptly forgot this angle. Continuing these periods of daily imagining for several weeks, we both felt we were now fused with our desire and had successfully been living in the end. They've been doing this for weeks, ladies and gentlemen. They were mentally rehearsing as an athlete does. One day, a stranger entered our office and identified himself as the contractor whose name my wife had mentioned weeks before. In an apologetic manner, he said, "I don't know why I stopped here." You stopped here because the force that creates everything compelled you to do so due to the imagination, due to the focus. I normally don't go to see people, but rather people come to see me. And of course, when people act to fulfill your desire, they will think that they were the impetus of the action. There's only one impetus. There's one power. There's one consciousness. And that is you, which is me. There's no separation. It's amazing when you try to wrap your mind around that. He explained that he passed our office often and wondered why there wasn't an apartment building on the corner of the lot. We assured him we would like very much to have a building there, but that we had no money to put in the project. Not even the few $100s it would take for plans. Our negative response did not faze him, and seemingly compelled, he began to figure and devise ways and means to carry out the job. So they didn't lift a finger. Now, a lot of people ask me, how do you determine whether to take action on your focused desire or whether to take no action? I say by the way it feels. These people didn't feel like spending any money, and that was a condition for their achievement of their desire, so they did not do that. But if you feel inspired, say, in a project to spend money, and you have that money and you can easily do it, then spend the money. Because inspired action is one of the doors that the universe uses, that the divine uses to get your desire to you. But do not stubbornly refuse to do something if it does not feel good to do so. And your barometer will always be your emotional feeling in doing it or not doing it. Because after all, action and non-action are the same thing. There's no duality. So by not taking action, you're taking action. Try to wrap your mind around that. Our negative response did not faze him, and he devised ways for the job. Forgetting the incident, so they forgot all about it, and they were just, because they were living in it now, ladies and gentlemen. It's like we talked about in the video last night. If you adopt this methodology wholesale, if you take the jump, and you embrace your focus as the only reality, you don't even notice what's going on in the outer, even if you gain what your desire is, or you gain a sign of it, because all that can be shown to you in any moment is a sign of it. Your whole desire cannot come in one moment, because your whole desire is not a point in time or space. Know this well. But you're so engrossed in it that you don't notice what's going on the outer, and you forget easily what's going on the outer. You're living in your inner kingdom. It's like the story about the golfer who was trained by a coach to focus so much on his game, and he won a tournament, and he had no idea he won until his wife came and told him. Why? Because he was focused on the way he was playing the game. He was focused on form. He was focused on inner, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking a lot more about that in videos coming up soon. We were quite startled when a few days later this man called informing us that plans were completed and that the proposed building would cost us $30,000. We thanked him politely and did absolutely nothing. We knew we had been living imaginatively in the end of a completed building, and that imagination would assemble that building perfectly without any outside assistance from us. So we were not surprised when the contractor called again the next day and said he had found a set of blueprints in his files that fitted our needs perfectly with few alterations. This, we were informed, would save us the architect's fee for new plans. We thanked him and still did nothing. Do nothing, as Neville Goddard says in another lecture, lift not a finger. Logical thinkers would insist that such negative response from prospective customers would completely end the matter. Instead, 2 days later, the contractor again called with the news that he had located a finance company willing to cover the necessary loan, with the exception of a few $1,000s. You see how this works? And why you don't have to believe for it, as we've discussed in other videos. See, these commentaries on these passages take us down many alleys and help us to explain what we could have otherwise tried to explain, but perhaps not accomplished fully for all audiences by taking one topic. Rather, we're able to do a commentary on a passage, and we can see how all of the concepts interrelate. And I hope you're following me just a little bit. But you don't have to believe. Why? Because things start unfolding, and then you get a little piece here, then you believe more, then you get a bigger piece here and you believe more into the whole thing snowballs. It's all taught in systems theory. It's no mystery even to the academics, although they would like to make it believe, or they would like to make us believe that it's all quote-unquote rational, where the mystical has a huge part to play in mathematics and systems theory and business and so on and so forth. But that's a side concept there, conversation. So he called with the news that he had located a finance company willing to cover the necessary loan with the exception of a few $1,000s. It sounds incredible, not to us who know these principles, but perhaps to someone reading this for the first time, but we still did nothing. For remember, to us this building was completed and rented, and in our imagination we had not put up 1 penny for its construction. So as Tesla said, when people told him that such and such a device was impossible, he said, but I saw it in my imagination and it was such and such. So this couple said, this was in our imagination, we're sticking to it, we're persisting, and by the way, we're not accepting anything less. And I don't want you to accept anything less. It's just like the story about Barbados, when Neville Goddard was so happy that he had gotten a ticket from his brother to Barbados, a desire which he had to go to Barbados. And Abdullah, his teacher, wasn't even happy. He said, who said you're going third class? Because they said that he would have to use third class for part of the way. He said, no, you got the ticket and you're going first class. He wouldn't even accept that. And Neville persisted. And then when he went, he said someone had actually canceled and he could go all the way in first class. So just like this, they kept persisting. That's the way you get it, ladies and gentlemen. So remember, to us, this building was completed and rented. And in our imagination, we had not put 1 penny to its purchase. The balance of this tale reads like a sequel to Alice in Wonderland. For the contractor came to our office the next day and said, as though presenting us with a gift, you people are going to have that new building anyway. I've decided to finance it, the balance of the loan myself. If this is agreeable, I'll have my lawyer draw up the papers and you can pay me back out of the net profits from the rentals. This time we did something, so that's when the inspired action comes up. We signed the papers, and construction began immediately. Most of the apartment units were written before the final completion, and all but one occupied the day of completion. We were so thrilled by the seemingly miraculous events of the past few months that for a while we didn't understand the seeming flaw in our imaginal picture. There was still a flaw and they wouldn't accept it. See, never settle for anything less than your complete desire, otherwise you're selling yourself short. He said, but knowing what we had already accomplished through the power of imagining, we immediately conceived another imaginal scene, and in it this time, instead of showing the party through the unit and hearing the words, we'll take it, we ourselves in imagination visited tenants who had already moved into the apartment. Remember that. Your imaginal scene is to be of that follows the completion of your desire, not trying to get to the completion of the desire. Because if you're trying to get to the completion of desire, what happens? You get to a film roll where you're just trying to get to the completion. Rather, imagine from a place of already having that completed, and then that will occur. Understand this well. So we allowed them to show us through the rooms and heard their pleased and satisfied comments. 3 days later, the apartment was rented. Our original imaginary drama had objectified itself in every detail save one, and that one became a reality when 1 month later our friend Miss X surprised us with a long overdue visit, expressing her desire to see our new building. Gladly we took her through, and at the end of the tour we heard her speak the line we had heard in our imagination so many weeks before, as with emphasis on each word she said, "Doctor, I think it's beautiful." Our dream of 15 years was realized, and we know now that we could have realized it any time within those 15 years if we had known the secret of imagining, what we call the secret of focus, and how to live in the end of our desire. But now it was realized our one big desire was objectified, and we did not put 1 penny of our own money into it. It's an incredible story, ladies and gentlemen. It shows a lot how to imagine here. And I just want to read one more that is very pertinent to a lot of the situations that many of our subscribers are in and that we've been getting emails over the last few days. And I have to just really look for it and find it here. It's about a lady who is out of a job. And this is just incredible, by the way. There are so many great stories in this. Here's the story here. This is going to blow your mind if you haven't heard it. It's an incredible story, and it gives a technique that you can start using immediately if you're overwhelmed with the process. Because remember, there's no process. You are the process. And anything that helps you abide in that state is the right thing for you. And I promise you, it will get you there. So, Neville says, we're talking about moods, by the way. And of course, what Abraham Hicks talks about emotion and the emotional scale and moving up the emotional scale. This is the chapter about moods. And so Neville says, the lady in the following story so successfully felt the feeling of her wish fulfilled. Remember, it's about capturing that feeling. If you can capture it and run with it, you need nothing else. He said she made her mood the character of the night, frozen in a delightful dream. Most of us read and love fairy stories, the lady now says in her testimonial. But we all know that stories of improbable riches and good fortune are for the delight of the very young. But are they? I want to tell you something unbelievably wonderful that happened to me through the power of my imagination, the power of my focus, and I'm not young in years. We live in an age which believes in neither fable or magic, and this was, remember, probably in the 60s. And yet everything I could possibly want in my wildest daydreams was given to me by the simple use of what you teach, what Neville Goddard teaches, that imagining creates reality, and that feeling is the secret of imagining. At the time this wonderful thing happened to me, I was out of a job and had no family to fall back upon for support. I needed just about everything. To find a decent job, I needed a car to look for it. And though I had a car, and how many people do I know in this day and age who don't have cars? I didn't have a car for many years, probably almost the entirety of my 20s, because once your car breaks down, ladies and gentlemen, it's so difficult using the worldly means to get another one, especially if you have no means of support. I know many people without cars, and it's hampered their success and so on and so forth. Here's the methodology, ladies and gentlemen, right here. I needed a car, and though I had a car, it was so worn out, it was ready to fall apart. I was behind in my rent. I had no proper clothes to seek a job. And today it's no fun for a woman of 55. Imagine she was 55, and this in the 60s, and a woman, ladies and gentlemen. And it was harder for women to find work back then. So everything was stacked against her to apply for a job of any kind. My bank account was almost depleted, and there was no friend to whom I can turn. So it doesn't matter if you have friends. It doesn't matter if you have connections. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter your race or your sexual orientation. None of that matters, because your focus is the power. You're going to see this here. But I had been attending your lectures for almost a year, and my desperation forced me to put my imagination to the test. It's like we were talking about yesterday. If you're in a situation now where you're about to lose your job or your house, as many subscribers to our channel have said they're in that situation, you now have no choice but to do this. So do it. Indeed, I had nothing to lose, and you have nothing to lose. It was natural for me, I suppose, to begin by imagining myself having everything I needed. But I needed so many things, and in such short order, that I found myself exhausted when I finally got through the list. And by that time I was so nervous I could not sleep. One lecture night, I heard you tell of an artist who captured the feeling, or word as you called it, of "Isn't it wonderful?" This is key. In his personal experience. I began to apply this idea to my case. Instead of thinking of and imagining every article I needed, why would you overwhelm yourself? I tried to capture the feeling that something wonderful was happening to me. Not tomorrow, not next week, but right now. And that's the trick, ladies and gentlemen. You have to give it to yourself now. That's what we talk about on this channel and in this platform. It's a major part of this modality. I would say over and over to myself as I fell asleep, isn't it wonderful? Something marvelous is happening to me now. And as I fell asleep, I would feel the way I would expect to feel under any circumstances. And doing this mantra, isn't it wonderful, will help you feel good in a very short amount of time. Try it now. You're going to get endorphins. Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? Isn't it wonderful? I already have endorphins and I don't even know the reason why I'm happy. You don't have to have a reason for being happy. It's what modern authors have called happy for no reason. By repeating this mantra, isn't it wonderful, and actually feeling the mood of that. And as I fell asleep, I would feel the feeling, what I would expect to feel in those circumstances. I repeated that imaginary action and feeling for 2 months straight. Night after night. Because this is not a chore, ladies and gentlemen. It's a privilege. Because you're not trying to get somewhere. You're there now. Why would you not do that every night? Why would you not want to go to sleep in the feeling of wonderfulness? And it's just a secondary bonus. You will get everything that you wish for. I think that's a very good deal, ladies and gentlemen. And one day in early October, I met a casual friend I hadn't seen for months who informed me he was about to leave on a trip for New York. I lived in New York many years ago, and we talked of the city for a few moments and then parted. I completely forgot the incident. 1 month later to the day, this man called at my apartment and simply handed me a certified check for $2,500, which was a lot of money at that time. After I got over the initial shock of seeing my name on a check for so much money, the story that unfolded seemed to me like a dream. It concerned a friend I had not seen nor heard from in more than 25 years. This friend of my past, I now learned, had become extremely wealthy in those 25 years. Because there's no past or present, this happened for her, ladies and gentlemen. Because life is not happening to you, it's happening for you. Our mutual acquaintance who had brought the check to me, had met him quite by accident during the trip to New York last month. During their conversations, they spoke of me, and for reasons I was not to know, for to this day I have not heard from him, and have never attempted to contact him. This old friend decided to share a portion of his great wealth with me. For the next 2 years, from the office of his attorney, I received monthly checks so generous in amount they not only covered every necessary requirement for daily living, but left much over for all the lovely things of life. A car, clothes, a spacious apartment, and best of all, no need to earn my daily bread. And that's the greatest secret, ladies and gentlemen, of lifestyle transformation. There's no need to earn your daily bread. You did not come into this world to struggle to earn your daily bread. You don't have to earn your daily bread. You don't have to work. That's a propaganda and a lie of the prison grid. Why? Because you've inherited everything. The Bible says you are inheritors of the earth. The Quran says you are khalifatun fil ard. You are inheritor. That's the secret that the prison grid and that the religious establishment doesn't want you to know. There's no need to earn your daily bread. The Greek philosophers knew this well. If you're working to earn your daily bread, you're trapped in a prison grid, and you can get out very quickly by abiding in your focus and your imagination. It's what we teach in this channel, ladies and gentlemen. It's my life's work to break you free. And we're getting there. We're getting there. In fact, you're there. This past month, I received a letter and some legal papers to be signed which provide the continuation of this monthly income for the rest of my natural life. And then Neville quotes the poem, "If the fool would persist in his folly, he would become wise." Ladies and gentlemen, we've gone way over time. These are just two of the great inspirational stories that we can go over and that teach so much about manifestation, how to do it. I recommend you read the books of Neville Goddard, not simply to study theory, as that would not have much value, but to drill yourself in the principles, show yourself how to do it, practice it, and remind yourself why we're doing what we're doing, and give yourself solace and hope when you're facing hard times. And I hope this video helped. I hope this is another go-to video for you when you're trying to garner that inspiration, when you're trying to get into flow, and then once you get there, everything will flow into your life easily and effortlessly. Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for watching the videos, thanks for liking the videos, thanks for sharing the videos, and thanks for commenting, and thanks for coming on this journey with me of rapid lifestyle transformation. I invite you below to email me if you want to get on a coaching call. We will go deep into this modality. I will show you how to make more improvement in weeks than some people do in years. Send me an email. We also have email coaching available. Until tomorrow, ladies and gentlemen, this is Javier signing off and sending you great love and appreciation. I'll see you soon.